Hello, welcome to Math Lesson 65. Let me minimize that. And today we're going to be focusing on doing some more long division, which we did in our previous lesson. And we're going to focus right away on these three words that I have on your screen. Let me start off by saying the first word is divisor, and the divisor is the number by which we are dividing into the dividend. And then the quotient is your answer to a division problem. If you remember, the answer to an addition problem is the sum. The answer to a subtraction problem is the difference. The answer to a multiplication problem is the product. And the answer to a division problem is the quotient. So let me show you how those would look. If I were to draw my division house like this, then the dividend is the number that goes inside the house. It's the big word, so we say it's the big dog, and the big dog gets to go into the dog house. The divisor goes in front, and the quotient is what goes on top. So in my example, I could say something like 15 is the dividend, and the divisor is 3, and the quotient is 5. So these are some new math terms that we need to add to our vocabulary in order to understand what our math problems are asking us. If you see a problem that looks like 24 divided by 6 equals 4, then your quotient is 4, your divisor is 6, and your dividend is 24. There's really no way around learning these other than just memorizing the definitions. Okay, so let's go to the next page and begin work on some harder math problems. What if I were to give you 234 as your dividend, and you had a divisor of 3, and we want to find the quotient or the answer. Remember, our process for long division is divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So let's begin by dividing. Now, if you were here with me at the previous lesson, you learned that sometimes we have to ignore the number on the end. So we're going to pretend that this 4 doesn't exist right now. And we're just going to look at the 2 and the 3. We're going to pretend like we are dividing by 23. So right now in our minds, this 4 no longer exists. So I'm going to take, actually I'm not going to erase it, I'm going to leave it there and trust that you'll remember to ignore the 4. So I'm going to ask myself 3 times what equals or gets me as close as I can to 23. Well, 3 times 1 is 3, but that's very far away from 23. Um, I could do 3 times 8, but that's 24, and that's too much. So it seems like 3 times 7 equals 21. That's as close as I can get to 23 without going over. So the 7 goes above the 3 because I'm dividing just by the 23. Remember, this 4 does not exist right now. And that takes care of the first step. Then I'm going to multiply 7 times 3. And of course, that's 21. So I write that underneath. And that takes care of the second step. Then I'm ready to subtract. 3 minus 1 is 2. And 2 minus 2, that's the same. So we just have a 0. We don't have to put anything there. So that takes care of the third step. And then we're ready for the fourth step, which is to bring down. Now we act like we know the 4 is there because we have to bring it down. We're ready to use it, and the 2 becomes 24. And we repeat the whole process then with 3 times what number can get me as close to 24 without going over? Well, 8. is exactly 24. 3 times 8 is 24. So the 8 goes on top right above the 4. That takes care of the division. Then we multiply the 8 times 3, which we know already is 24. That takes care, oops, I got ahead of myself there. Let me undo that. That takes care of the multiplying. Then we're ready to subtract. And 24 minus 24 is very simple. It's a 0. So we've done that. And we no longer have any numbers up here to bring down, nor do we have, since it's a 0, a remainder. So we can just ignore that. So our quotient is 78. That's our quotient. That's the answer. Our divisor was 3. And let me clear myself a little path here to write. And our dividend was 234. That's the number that goes inside your division symbol. What if you don't have this division house, as we like to call it in my classroom? Well, if you don't have that, let's go back to this page and let me erase that so we're not distracted by it. And let me erase the division house. What if you have um, this kind of division symbol? Sometimes we see this in our math book, the dot and the line and the dot underneath it. Okay, so what happens in this type of division equation is that the dividend, the big number, goes first, just like you would in subtraction. Your divisor goes second, and then you would write the equal sign, and your quotient would go on the end. So you would look more like a typical equation that you might see, an equation format that you might see for addition, subtraction, or multiplication. Now, if you have a fraction bar, sometimes they write it that way, then your dividend, the big number, goes on top again. Your divisor would go underneath it this time, and you would write your equal sign to the side, and your quotient would go after the equal sign. So you're just going to take some time to memorize the terms that we have learned today: dividend, divisor, and quotient. Now, there are some extra practice problems for you to solve. If you need practice, I would encourage you to go to page 306 in our math book and practice those problems before beginning your lesson. All right, so that concludes today's lesson. And remember, quitters never learn and learners never quit.